Hi everybody, this video is about what to do when your guy's being selfish. This is a question that comes up all the time in my coaching work. I'm Jen from Jen Michelle Coaching. If this is something that you're dealing with in your relationship, you are not alone. Even myself in my marriage, there was a time where I felt like my husband was just the most selfish man on the planet, that he didn't care about what I needed or remotely interested in what made me happy or what made my clock tick, anything. I felt like it was just all about him and his needs, and everything else came secondary, including me. And this caused so much disconnection and tension in our relationship because the more I looked for evidence to support his selfish behaviors, the more I found. And so I decided, through just learning about the dynamics of the masculine and feminine energy, something I talk a lot about here, I realized that I had an opportunity to inspire change and see if we could grow past these issues, because our relationship was really headed south and something had to change. And so when I started to really shift the way I looked at him and our relationship, I then inspired him to completely transform. I mean, he showed up in an entirely different new light, yet in reality, he was the same man all along. So the first thing that I did is I started to learn how to communicate my needs clearly. Because when I had the storyline going that he was the most selfish man on the planet, part of that was I wasn't speaking up for myself and communicating what I needed in the relationship, or I was going along with things that I really didn't want. I said yes when I meant no, and it caused a lot of resentment to build. And so what happens when we build resentment is we release it in other ways. And so I released my resentment as, he doesn't care about me. He should have picked up on that. He should have known that, I couldn't do that type of thing. But in reality, I needed to be able to hold those boundaries and say no and communicate clearly what I wanted and what I didn't want, and then hold myself accountable to that. So as we learn to share our truth and say no to the things that are appropriate for us to say no to, or that we really just don't want to do, we let go of resentment because we're honoring ourselves. And while it may feel uncomfortable in the beginning as he gets used to us saying no and having boundaries, you will immediately notice that you're less angry, less resentful, and less holding on to stuff that doesn't feel good for you. So this will really start to shift and lighten your energy, just being able to articulate your needs and honoring them and not taking responsibility for how he interprets them or reacts as a result of you sharing that, right? Number two is acting as if. This is a big one, and I love acting as if. This is where we choose to consciously put all of our attention on the ways he's showing up that we like, that we want more of. So we're acting as if we're there. We've got this guy who's completely, giving to the relationship. He's cherishing us. He's adoring us. He's loving us. Now, we're not being idiots about it where, we're like, oh, that's okay type of thing. But what I'm saying is we're shifting where we're looking for evidence. So if we've got the storyline going that we're with a really selfish man who can't meet our needs, we are going to find many ways to support that. But if we start acting as if we're with that man that we know is buried deep down, that we met in the beginning because he showed him to us before, so we know he's there somewhere. So if we start acting as if he's made his way back, we start looking for evidence to see that again. And we bring our attention to it. We do this by authentically thanking him. Thank you for doing that. That was so sweet. That was so thoughtful. You didn't have to do that, but you did. Thank you. And we start really bringing attention to anything he does that counters that story that he's selfish. So the acting as if will really start to transform all the ways he's showing up, because what we focus on expands. And if we are focused on him being a loving, generous man that we already know is somewhere in there, we are going to get him back. We are going to inspire him back. So it's a matter of where we're choosing to put our focus and letting go of those old dialogues and those old stories that aren't serving us. And number 3, stop picking up his slack. So this means if he is, being selfish and dropped the ball on the floor type of thing, it doesn't mean we pick it up. We let it be. Okay. But it doesn't become our responsibility. For example, if we asked him to run an errand and he agreed to it, but he didn't do it, it doesn't mean that we run out there and do it. If it's not urgent, we just let it be. If it is related to housework, if you're like married or living together, it doesn't mean you pick up his part. You just leave the deflated ball on the ground and you see what he does with it. And this is an uncomfortable period because it's hitting the reset button. But again, you will notice when you're not picking up his slack, your amount of resentment that you're feeling will drastically decrease because you're not taking responsibility. You're not over functioning. You're not managing the relationship. You're not doing any of those behaviors that make you feel the opposite of sexy, feminine, cherished, adored. Instead, you're saying, you know what? I'm just going to create some space and see how this unfolds. And I only have control over me. And I'm only going to take responsibility for the things that I can control within myself. I'm going to show up peaceful. I'm going to show up loving, but I'm not going to do the things that make me build anger, resentment, or that sense of disconnection, or that support storylines that absolutely do not serve what I want long term. And so as we let go of consciously, really choosing to create something new and let go of those old stories, we have an opportunity to truly inspire the absolute best in him. And I have seen this time and time again. I've seen it in my own relationship, and I've seen it with so many of the women that I coach. A man that they thought was just completely like self-absorbed and didn't care at all, then became the man that they knew deep down he was, that they got glimpses of and were with in the very beginning. And so I want you to know that if you're in a situation where you feel like your man just is selfish, detached, or doesn't care, that can change, and it can change quickly. So if you could use some coaching around this, please contact me at jenmichellecoaching.com or download in my summary in my profile my 5 ways to attract your ex back, as well as Mirror Talk, learning ways to love ourselves, to inspire attraction and intimacy in a really powerful way. Sending you lots of love and would love your feedback. Bye.